All right, the break is over. Baseball is back, and the Blue Jays didn't miss a beat.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm yours, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. And on Instagram, I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We are doing a bonus Saturday episode because we had a whole week where I had to kind of fill stuff up and get in arguments with Booney and everything like that, and was like, come on, let's just get back to the games. And we got a full slate. But first, let's go over the trivia question, which was this: who was the last pitcher to give us 300 innings for a season? Got a bunch of people saying, a couple people said Catfish Hunter, a couple people said Phil Necro, but the correct answer is Aloy O'Hara got it right. It was Steve Carlton in 1980 was the last to go 300 innings in a season. It's been since I was 8 years old. By the rule of 7, where your memories of baseball and sports and things like that start to crystallize when you're 7 years old, I had 2 years of seeing pitchers throw 300 innings, and that's it. Back then, there were 2 Star Wars movies, and there were no Indiana Jones movies. It's insane. There was one Christopher Reeve Superman. By the way, this is how I mark years, by World Series champions and what the movies I like there. I saw Superman, by the way. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. The guy who plays Superman's fantastic. But at least it's fun. The last Superman, although Man of Steel was so grim, I like the fact that it was fun. Back to baseball. We had a full slate of games. And by the way, Kyle Stowers owned baseball. He was tremendous. He's hit like more home runs than Fred McGriff hit in his entire career in the last 5 days. And in the last 5 days, I may have to look this up. In 5 days, Kyle Stowers has hit 15 walk-off home runs. I think I have that number wrong. But according to my all the clips I see on my feed, every day is another Kyle Stowers walk-off home run. And he got one last night. And I'm gonna hold off on doing some Marlins talk because I'm doing a Marlins episode. That's right. I'm going to devote an entire episode to the Marlins. We're going to be doing a Locked On Marlins crossover pretty soon because the Marlins are a fun team. You heard me. The Marlins are a fun team, and they're creeping closer and closer to 500. As I'm recording this, they're 45 and 51. Which means they're sniffing. Are they going to make it? I don't know. But if they keep winning games like they did last night, they're going to be fun. Watch this team. They're exciting, and they play a great brand of baseball. And if they had ownership, they would build on that. I've made that point before. I'll make it again. Hey, another team that is surprising me, another team that Mark Burley played for that I bet you forgot he played for, the Toronto Blue Jays played the San Francisco Giants. And first things first, I think it might be over for Justin Verlander. I know his 0-8 record is misleading. His ERA is still under 5, but his days of being a superstar ace are, I mean, look at what else do we want? The guy's already going to the Hall of Fame. But he let up 4 runs in 2 2/3. He let up 9 hits and 2 walks, and allowed the Jays to build up a 4-0 lead. By the way, tip your hat to Giants reliever Tristan Beck, who pitched 4 1/3 shutout innings to stem the tide. But the Blue Jays jumped out to an early lead. They got Joey Loperfido. I think I've never said it. You're now witnessing me saying his name for the first time. Got a double. Will Wagner got a double. Nathan Lukes drove in Wagner. Next thing you know, it's a 4-0 lead for the Jays. And that's pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, that was the scoring of the game. 4 runs in the second inning. That's all the runs that were scored in the game. But I'll tell you something, that took a great deal of, let's just say, Houdini-like pitching by Chris Bassett. 6 1/3 innings for Chris Bassett. He allowed 10 hits. 10 hits. And no runs. In the end, the Giants got 11 hits and went 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. The main reason you got to give pitching credit is 2 reasons. Well, do you what? I'll say 3. They got out of the jams with good solid pitching, a couple big double plays. Yes, they let up 11 hits, 10 by Chris Bassett. They didn't walk anybody. They pitched in the strike zone. They struck out 12 batters. They allowed 11 hits, but they didn't walk anyone. They pitched with good control and allowed the Giants to shoot themselves in the foot. But something I got to give the manager some credit for, or if it's the front office, whoever's making these decisions, but I've been brutal on Schneider, the manager of the Jays. I've been calling for his head for a couple of years. So when I do that and he starts doing a good job, you got to be consistent. I got to be consistent and say, hey, do you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe he just needed a couple of years to fit into the Jays like a suit. But Bassett pitched into the 7th. He didn't have a great game, but they didn't yank him with like the big cane in a vaudeville show or you see in a Bugs Bunny cartoon. They let him pitch into the 7th. He let up a pile of hits, but the bullpen wasn't worn into the ground. What a concept. What an amazing set of circumstances to think, hey, wait a second. Even though no one is going to be sending a copy of this game to Cooperstown and say, you know what, kids, this is one of those games you're going to remember. Ken Burns is not going to include this game in the next edition of the baseball documentary. But saying, hey, wait a minute, let's not just yank Bassett at the first sign of trouble. And you look up at Jeff Hoffman, pitched a 1-2-3 9th. Yariel Rodriguez pitched. He allowed 1 hit, but faced no real pressure. And Brendan Little came in the 7th. Do you know when he came in the 7th? When he needed relief. So you got the bullpen for the Blue Jays pitched in a 2 2/3 innings. The bullpen for the Giants pitched 5 1/3 innings. And you're seeing all these other teams that are pulling their pay. Okay, hey, wait, they went through the order twice. It's not optimal to have face a third time. Let's wear our relievers to the ground. Good on the Blue Jays. And by the way, and we're going to get a little into the Yankee loss, but the Yankees lost, the Red Sox winning streak is over, and the Jays won. So if all those teams just split, the Red Sox and Cubs split, and the Yankees and Atlanta split, and the Jays split with the Giants, then the Blue Jays will have started the first season after the All-Star break, picking up a game on the Yankees before their big showdown, which they have next week. And you know what's also smart? The Blue Jays, at least one game into it, aren't wearing down their bullpen before the big showdown. Not that San Francisco is necessarily a pushover. They're knocking on the wild card's door, although losses like that aren't going to help. But you don't want to go into the Yankee series with the bullpen looking like they just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So, guess what? It's an amazing thought and probably puts a middle finger in some analytics' face. But they said, hey, let's not relieve our pitcher until they need relief. My God, what a concept. All right, let's hear from our good friends over at FanDuel. You know, summer sports, you know what they are? They're in full swing right now. I think it's pretty clear what I root for. I root for baseball. But do you know what? Some people are big into golf. Some people are big into tennis. Some people are big into soccer. And FanDuel is the best way to get every game more exciting. Now, you're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling? FanDuel can get you in on the game while your friends out there getting sunburned at the beach. I use FanDuel mainly when I'm getting pitchers, strikeout totals, and who's going to be, holding them down. Skeens pitching, Mizorowski pitching. Let's see how Scooble does. That's when I go to FanDuel. It's easy to use. It's fast to pay out. It makes even regular season games feel like the playoffs. Playoffs? Whether I'm placing a same game parlay, and that's French for speak, or watching a bet ride to the ninth inning, that's English for inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Now, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today, now, or visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, let's bet. All right, hey, let's get rid of the FanDuel banner. It was late to the party and late getting out there. What the hell happened with the Yankees? Someone's got to use really small words to explain to me how the Yankees can come back from the All-Star break and throw a bullpen game. I really, if there's ever a situation where you have to take a look, I'm not going to throw Boone under the bus for this one. I'm really not. This is anyone who's defending Cashman left and right has to sit down and explain to me like I'm a child. How do you come back from a break? They have not played since Sunday. On Friday, you look at it, gosh, we don't have a pitcher. How is that possible? How is that possible that you've constructed a roster where first game out after the All-Star break, you think, oh, geez, I don't know. Really? You say, I don't know. There's nobody rested. There's not one major league pitcher you can hand the ball to after a 5-day break. You have to go right to a bullpen game. I was under the impression, I got to remind you, I'm old enough to remember when a pitcher threw 300 innings. So yeah, I guess I can call dirt young man. But I'm under the impression that you had 5 days off and you have a rotation of pitchers that maybe, I don't know, maybe one of them's rested. But they started after the All-Star break with a bullpen game. A bullpen game should be an emergency. A bullpen game should have been, oh my God, this person's injured and holy Toledo, we just played a 13-inning game last night. Everyone's gassed. In case of emergency, break glass. Not after a break. I'm sounding like Ross. We were on a break. And Cam Schlitter, I got to be careful how I say the man's last name because I don't want to get a bad rating here. And Max Fried, there's some questions about whether or not they were healthy enough to start. Okay? That's it. You got 2 pitchers. You've constructed a roster with images of a World Series appearance dancing in your head, and you're saying there's no way, there's not another pitcher who you can hand the ball to? Stroman? I'm not saying Stroman is Steve Carlton circa 1980, but I was under the impression he was a major league pitcher. You got nobody in your front. Now, I can understand. There are instances where an injury happens kind of last minute. That's what happened that opening day in 1981. Jerry Royce was supposed to go opening day, and he had some tightness or something like that. And Tommy Lasorda flipped the coin and said, do you know what? I like that Valenzuela guy. Valenzuela famously threw a complete game shutout on opening day, thus starting Fernando Mania. I can understand if it's a really last-minute thing, but this is a 5-day break. Nobody in the minor leagues. Not another pitcher could have gone. And the reason why I'm getting on the Yankees about this is because they stumbled into the All-Star break. Yeah, they had that big winning streak where they beat The Mets on the last day of that series, then they swept the Mariners, had that wild game where there being no hit, and they clobbered the Cubs in game one of their series. But then they lost the series to the Cubs after losing 6 games in a row. And then they needed to show, okay, was the Mariners series a fluke, or were the losing streaks a fluke? Get out of the gate running. And instead, they put together, not only was it a bullpen game, but the lineup, when I looked at the lineup, I thought, wait a minute, is this a split squad spring training game I'm watching? Or a team that is currently not in first place and does not have an insurmountable lead in the wild card chase, comes out of the break looking like they're having a lot of players wearing 99. Actually, Judge wears 99, 98 on their back. One of them was a guy named Yorbit Vivas, Yorbit Bibas. I keep forgetting that you have to pronounce B's as a Yorbit Bibas. Wears number 90 and was involved in a really embarrassing highlight of he was trying to go from second to third on a fly ball to right that Ronald Acuna Jr., not the old man, was in right field and caught the ball kind of flat-footed, threw it to third base. It was a great throw, but it was aided by the fact that Bibas just was jogging by the end. Now, I know a lot of people are killing him for that. And yes, he should have been hustling the whole way. I don't blame him for not sliding because the third base coach, I think he went like, just slide. And then just was pointing to the base, which he probably thought meant, okay, I'm standing up. If you got to slide, get down, get down. And so when you have the Yankees who are trying to say, hey, I'm tired of people saying that we don't have a lot of depth. We have a hole at third base and we play crappy defense and we have a low baseball IQ. And then you have the team getting, clobbered out of the gate. And like it was a 3-0 game before people could even sit down in Atlanta and have their hot dog. It was 7-0 by the end of fourth. And yeah, the Yankees put together 3 runs towards the end, but did anybody think they were going to win that game? And you saw they got Bibas pitching, hitting ninth, and he was a minor league call-up. And I guess what they're saying is, hey, maybe we have someone in the farm to play third base instead of making a trade. If Bibas looks great. Didn't look great last night. But then you have Wells, who's not a great hitter this year. Volpe, who has played as badly as any player in baseball for the last month. Ben Rice, who got a couple of hits, but, fine. Jason Dominguez, who, again, not a bad player, but they didn't start Stanton out of the gate. You're leading off Trent Grisham? Well, I would, with this lineup, Grisham, Bellinger, Judge, Chisholm, okay. Why are you leading Grisham off? I don't understand. Dominguez, put Jason Dominguez at the leadoff. Rice, Volpe, Wells, Vivas. I guess the other starters are playing in Dunedin or someplace today. You come out of the All-Star break with your B lineup and a bullpen game. They have to win out. They have to win out the rest of the games against Atlanta, because if they don't, then they'll have dropped the game in the standings to Toronto, and then they face Toronto. There's a huge series coming up. If I'm not mistaken, the Yankees' next series is against the Toronto Blue Jays. And the Yankees, in case you forgot, were the team that a lot of people thought were going to be a pennant winner this year. Not the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays went on a rampage last month, won that first game against against San Francisco. But the Yankees, when they had that 5-game winning streak in the middle of July. I want to point something out here. I'm going to use a sample size of roughly a month. I'm going to say June 13th, but I have no compunction calling that a month because there was a break. The Yankees are 11-18 since June 18th. Only the White Sox are worse than that in the American League. Only in a stretch of roughly a month. Only the White Sox. And that is one game better than the Rockies. No, I'm sorry, half a game better than the Rockies. They're playing at White Sox Rockies level for a month. And you come out of the break with a bullpen game? Now, I had a eulogy for Jim Clancy the other day, who was an innings eater. He wasn't a superstar. He did make an all-star team, but he wasn't a superstar. He usually wasn't even the ace on his own team. Remember, he pitched with Dave Stieb, who I think is a Hall of Famer, and Jimmy Key, who was, I think, one of the most underrated pitchers we've seen. I mean, Jimmy Key was not a good pitcher. He was a great pitcher. And so when you're on our staff with guys like them, you're going to be the number 3 guy, which is usually where Jim Clancy was. But he was a pitcher who every year would throw 200 some odd innings, start 35 some odd games. He was an innings eater, not a flamethrower who you had to sort of put his arm, treat his arm like it's a Fabergé egg. And one of the things about durable innings eaters is if there was a situation where, oh my God, we can't throw the pitcher we wanted to throw, the innings eating pitchers could move up in the rotation. Could say, we're actually ones that are going to start now, but we're going to start this person. But the fact there was a 5-game break and there wasn't a single pitcher they could use shows that the roster for the Yankees is incompetently put together. It is. Don't go, every team has injuries. There's not one pitcher with that payroll who's a major league pitcher with at least 5 days rest you can hand the ball to. If that's the case, then you say, what we need a general manager. That's what you have to say if you're the Yankees. And by the way, maybe this is something teams we just had to draft. Instead of being like, he throw 103 mile an hour, he throw 104 mile an hour. Maybe draft a couple people going like, doesn't necessarily throw 100 some odd miles an hour, but can pitch, can get outs, is smart. An arm isn't going to fall off if you pitch more than 5 1/3 innings. Find a bunch of Jim Clancy's. Or, I've been saying this for years, start developing knuckleballers. Find people who do the knuckleball. Do you know why? Phil Niekro would throw 300 some odd innings a year. Tim Wakefield, all those years with the Red Sox. Yeah, sometimes he would let up a Boone home run. The thing the Red Sox fans very seldom said was, hey, how was Wakefield yesterday? Okay. He was usually, oh my God, he pitched great, or oh my God, he got clobbered. But he was durable. Maybe stop salivating over, he throw fast. Maybe that's why all these arms are flying out of their sockets. And parents are like, my kid can throw 100 miles an hour. Let's give him Tommy John surgery while he's in the NICU. Maybe that's part of the reason why pitchers are breaking down, and we're horrified at the notion of he pitched 5 1/3 innings. Put him on the 60-day IL. Innings eaters, durable pitchers who you can move up in the rotation if you have, say, a 5-day break. What the hell are we doing? We're all watching Mizorowski. We should be having fun like we had when Fernando Valenzuela popped up. But instead, we're all acting like the guy snipping the wire and trying to deactivate a bomb. Oh my God, his arm's going to go at any second. Maybe something is happening here because we can't keep relying on the old aces. Verlander might be done. At least he's done as an ace. So we got to develop some new ones, but we also need to develop, they're not ready to go. You're a durable dude. Get in there and pitch. By the way, Quinn Priester, let's give him a thumbs up. Pitched 6 innings, struck out 10 batters. The Dodgers are on a slump right now. And the Brewers caught him at the exact right time. The exact right time. You saw, look at Tyler Glasnow pitched 6 solid innings. Glasnow, I got to tip my hat. I didn't think we were going to see anything out of Tyler Glasnow this year. Since he spent the last couple of years in a full body cast. But I know he made the All-Star team, was it last year or the year before, but he's come October, he's in his street clothes. And he pitched pretty well, but the Dodgers are in a little bit of a slump. And here's the deal. There's not a chance in heaven or on earth that they're going to lose the National League West. even with Manny Machado's grand slam yesterday for the Padres, they're not going to catch him. They're not. The Dodgers are too good to not win the NL West. And the Dodgers, they put up too big a lead. And even with this big, horrible slump they're on, they're still up 4.5 games after the All-Star break. But since the 4th of July, they are they're 2-8. They've been on a slide. They went on a great run between at the end of June, and then they just lost it. And mind you, one of the games that the two games they've won were against the Giants. One was a 1-run game, the other was an extra inning game. So the Giants bullpen has basically kept them from being on, basically kept them from keeping the Padres within, striking distance. But good for the Brewers, who are within striking distance of the Cubs right now. The Brewers have had their number. The Brewers swept the Dodgers between July 7th and July 9th. And all they have to do is split the next two games to win the series against them right out of the All-Star break. A lot of credit. I'm sure when you looked at the schedule and the Brewers were playing really well and climbing back into the race, they said, well, guess what? They got a bunch of games against the Dodgers. Good luck with that. Well, guess what? They're only a game back of the Chicago Cubs, and the All-Star game is in the rearview mirror. And the Brewers, who, they are a consistent playoff team. They just don't go far in the playoffs. But let's take a look at their upcoming schedule, and they have these games against LA. Then they have to go to Seattle. Then they have the Marlins, and who knows, because the Marlins are, as we'll find out later, they're playing great baseball. But at the end of the month, they play the Cubs. So the whole key for the Milwaukee Brewers is to win one of the next two games against LA, which means you've held your own with the Dodgers, and just stay within striking distance, because the end of the month, right around the trade deadline, is going to come an NL Central showdown, and that's pretty cool. By the way, I'm going to say the last thing about the A's for a while, hopefully for a while, unless they do something really cool on the field. A bunch of people have, a lot of them were A's fans or Las Vegas A's fans who don't like me, were pointing out that, and I don't care if you like me or not. I'd like you to like me. I like you. I like everyone who listens to me. Yes, even you. But sent me the clip of the fact that there's a ballpark cam that we can watch live, the construction cam of the new stadium in Las Vegas, Fisher Field or whatever it's going to be called. And a couple of them sent me that clip and saying, you're a clown, and, are you going to take back what you said and everything like that. And then I also saw some people like, Brody Brazil or the Last Dive Bar saying this is a sham and this is going to be taken down soon. The truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle right there. Do I take back everything I've said about John Fisher and this whole process? Of course not. Of course not. Until I'm proven wrong. And if I'm proven wrong, it's very easy to prove me wrong. Put the money up and build the darn thing. And, and reverse a decade and a half of behaviors. Now, I may be wrong about John Schneider and the Blue Jays, who I've been saying should be fired. And now the Blue Jays are playing great baseball, so maybe it wasn't him. And I was wrong about Ohtani and his interpreter, who I thought Ohtani was paying the bills of his interpreter and didn't realize he made a boo-boo. I never thought Ohtani bet on baseball. I thought he was covering for a buddy. I was wrong about the Mets last year, who I thought should have sold. And he always said, hey, look, you're not going to make the playoffs. And if you are, you're not going to go far. So you might as well build up your farm system. They got to within 2 years. I turned out to be wrong. When I'm wrong, I'll admit it. Those are fun episodes to do, to admit when I'm wrong. And I'm dying to do I'm wrong about John Fisher. I'm not doing it yet. But I am impressed as at least an attempt at transparency here. Now, the video shows a bunch of bulldozers pushing dirt around, which you would expect to see at a site of a recently demolished building. It's not showing a lot of things like concrete being poured or structure being put up, but at least right now, who knows, maybe by the time I record this, they're putting up pylons and everything like that. But The fact of the matter is, it's an attempt at transparency, which we did not get in Oakland, not with Fisher, not with the corrupt politicians, not with the person who claims to be the commissioner, Mr. Manfred. There wasn't a lot of transparency at all going on during there. So at least putting a camera on so we can check on it, that's a good first step. But it's not a last step. You know what it is? It's like if you're going on a diet, okay? And trust me, I know all about struggles with weight. And you say, "Do you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to change my life here." And you'll put an app on your phone, a calorie counting app. So I'm going to start counting my calories, okay? And you say, "Okay, I'm doing this. This is step one of me making a big change." Well, that's what this Ballpark Cam is. It's putting the calorie counter app on your phone. Doesn't mean you've lost the weight yet, but it means at least you're starting something. Now keep it going. And I'm going to check on that. And if they start building stuff, I will say, "Look at that. Way to go." We still don't know what the budget is in the wake of tariffs. We still don't know really where all the money is coming from. We keep saying it's from the family. Are they really doing it or not? It still seems like a giant delta, like almost $1 billion delta or something. At least it's hundreds of millions of dollars short of a budget that we don't know. That still seems like a problem to me. But hey, if they're going to be letting us watch the construction, that's a sign of, well, that is a sign of at least an attempt at transparency. All right, let's do the trivia question. Born on this day was a player who led the American League in home runs and runs batted in 1925. He was teammates with Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth in the 1920s, and he out-homered both of them, and he drove in more runs than him. What was the name of the Yankee who led the league in home runs and RBI in 1925 over his teammates Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth? That's the trivia question. Put it right down here on the YouTube page and follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days, and on Instagram. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and listening to this bonus Saturday episode. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night at Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talking about the Blue Jays flying high out of the gate, the Brewers catching the Dodgers at the right time and staying close to everybody, the Yankees thinking that this was spring training and saying, "Hey, this could be step one of transparency. Now let's get to step two with the Las Vegas Stadium." This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.